What is up, guys? Pie Muffin here, and we are back with our Tales of Arise video. So, this is probably going to be my final Tales of Arise video before the game's release. I am recording this, I mean, you'll probably see this the day I record it, but I'm recording this on the 28th of August, and Tales of Arise comes out on the 10th of September. So, that gives us just under 13 days, so it's like 12 days and a few hours before, you know, the game will be in our hands if you pre-ordered it. I guess for people who are waiting for it to be delivered or picking up at like a GameStop or something, you know, obviously you'll pick it up the day of, but you won't get it at midnight. But the people who do, you know, pre-order digitally will just be able to play right when it hits midnight, which obviously I will be doing. I'll be playing a decent amount that first night. So I just wanted to make this video about two major things. First thing is going to be what to expect from my playthrough, how things are going to kind of go with that. And the second thing is to kind of give my current impressions on Tales of Arise after having played the demo 3 or 4 times. I think I played it 4 times total, because I played it once each time to get the 3 different cutscenes, and then I just played it one more to kind of mess around with the combat some more and kind of get used to things. But I think I haven't touched the demo in over a week now, so I'm pretty much, you know, I'm good. I got my fix for Tales of Arise. I have actually been playing some Vesperia, you know, just to keep myself in the Tales mood. Just because Vesperia is one of the games I've already done a playthrough on the channel for. So, you know, it's not like I have to save that for another playthrough. So yeah, but before we hop into those two things, I do want to quickly mention, this is very rare that this happens, but you might want to start getting, if you're on Twitter, start putting your muted keywords in for Tales of Arise so you don't get spoiled. And then, of course, be very, very careful on the videos you watch on YouTube. If you watch a lot of Tales videos, or even, you know, if you listen to, like, Tales music, or you watch Tales, especially if you watch my, I'm not saying that my Tales videos are big, but, because Tales is like a keyword, it will probably recommend other Tales things. And now is about the time where people get their copies of Tales of Arise, and if there are people, like someone I saw on Twitter today, there's this one guy who apparently got a code from his friend. I guess a review code was given to his friend. I guess for whatever reason he didn't want the review code, so he gave it to his random friend, and his random friend just started posting screenshots on Twitter. As of right now, he didn't post anything too spoilery. I didn't really want to look, but I couldn't really avoid it. It was just kind of there. It was really just, I saw Alphen with one of his, I guess it's going to be late game swords. I'm not going to say what kind of sword it is or what it looks like or anything, but that's pretty much what I saw. So now is about that time where, you know, you got people like that who are just going to be dumb and, you know, post stuff like that, which is, you know, kind of illegal because the person who gave him the code obviously had a contractual obligation with Bandai, you know, the people who gave him the code, and is kind of breaking that by letting his friend just post what he wants. But guess that guy won't be getting codes anymore. But anyways, so be careful. You know, I would say, you know, definitely the last like 3 or 4 days before the game's release will probably be when you start seeing, I don't know when the embargo actually goes up, because I know 9 times out of 10 whenever a new anime game comes out, there are these, you know, playthrough channels, you know, the no commentary playthrough channels that start uploading their stuff like 2 or 3 days before the game's even released, or they do their live streams or whatever. So do be careful of that. I know at least, you know, starting like a week before, I'm probably really not going to be on Twitter, because I do want to I really do want to go into this game blind. Despite the fact I'm making content for it, I don't want to know anything about the story beyond what I already know from the trailers. I don't want to see people posting, you know, final boss and ending, stuff like that. So be careful of that. Okay, so what should we go into first? By the way, this is obviously, I didn't have this really planned out beforehand. We're just kind of going with it. I guess we'll talk about my... Alright, let's talk about the plans first. We'll talk about my Arise impressions last. So let's talk about my plans. So I've already mentioned this in quite a few videos already. about how I'll kind of be handling this playthrough. But for those who haven't seen those discussions, because sometimes they happen on live streams or in random videos, let's just quickly talk about it. So, my playthrough, if you watched my Xillia playthrough, which is actually still ongoing, I think it still has like a week's worth of videos left that you'll still see. I think the final episode is set to come out on the 6th or the 7th, so like a few days right before Arise starts. But if you've been watching that, expect my playthrough to be very similar to that, but there's going to be a few key differences with that. With Xillia, I had already beaten the game on Milla's side, and I was just playing Jude's side, so for most of the content of the game, I knew where I was going, and I kind of made it, you know, kind of a streamlined episode series where I was just kind of like, okay, this episode, we're going to cover this much ground, and, you know, there's going to be a save point at this point here, so we'll move on from there moving forward. This is going to be different because, obviously, I have not played Tales of Arise before. It's going to be a blind playthrough, so I won't know the perfect places to stop. Also, because I had played Xillia before, I skipped a lot of the side quests and a lot of the side content just to kind of give, you know, a playthrough of me playing through the story. Because the main thing I'm here for when I play RPGs or just video games in general is the story. Like, obviously, it sounds kind of silly to say, like, don't you play video games for the gameplay? Like, of course. I love Tales gameplay. It's fun to me. But I would much rather have an RPG with mediocre combat but an amazing story than a mediocre story with amazing combat. That's just how I am, you know. There's tons of games out there that aren't like even like you know, gameplay heavy like that. So, you know, games for everybody. Everyone has different things that they like and dislike. Anyways, that's not the point. The point I'm trying to make is that it's not going to be as structured as my Xillia one is. If I find an area that I want to explore and find everything, that might be an entire episode of 30 minutes where we're just walking around an area, you know, opening every treasure chest we can find, working on fishing, stuff like that. There are probably going to be videos like that, but for videos like that that are mostly like that, I will probably title that as such. If there is even just a little bit of story, I will make it known, either by the title or the description. But usually, if it's going to be an episode that has zero story, I will probably make a note in the description, or maybe I'll leave a comment in the, you know, pinned, that, you know, if you want to skip this part, if you just want to see my reactions to the story, you can probably skip to the next episode type stuff. But I think for the most part, there's probably going to be a bit of story in every episode. I don't think there's ever going to be a point where I have like an hour where I'm just kind of like exploring one area. But you never know. Obviously, I've never played the game before, so I don't know yet. So that's the plans for like how exactly it's going to look. You know, if I get to a point of the story where there's just a lot of side content to do, I'm obviously going to take the time to do that side content. It's not going to be like Xillia where I skipped all the side quests because I didn't want it to be all convoluted and all over the place. But for Arise, I will not be skipping any side content. If I see side content, I'm doing it. I don't care. The only thing I can see myself skipping is if there's some like really hard like fishing things. Like I you know, in the Trails of Cold Steel games, I completely quit on those fishing challenges because of I just hate fishing in those games. So stuff like that I may skip. But in terms of like all the side quests where it's like, hey, can you go get this for me? Here, I'll give you this item. I will do that stuff for sure. So expect that. And then as for my upload schedule, for the most part, it's going to be similar to my Xillia playthrough, but I think the only difference is I'm going to try and do 2 videos each day as opposed to just 1. So realistically, how it's probably going to look, the game comes out Friday the 10th. So that Friday, I'll probably have 2. I might do 3 episodes the first day since I won't upload over the weekend. So I might do like my first 3 parts, which will probably be like the tutorial intro stuff. And then we'll pick back up on Monday, continuing forward from there. Because obviously, I assume most people are going to be playing the game first and then watching my stuff after. So, you know, giving people a chance to play it over the weekend, get a decent bit ahead, and then come back and watch, you know, to see what I did or where I'm at, will probably work out pretty well. So that's kind of my plan, is probably the first day I'll do 3 parts, And then Monday through Friday, moving forward until the game is finished, I will probably do 2 episodes a day. Which, I've only done, so I've done 3, technically total, I've done 3 Tales playthroughs. I mean, I've done more, but they were on like an old channel. I remember I did my first Tales of Berseria playthrough on my old channel, Blind. And I think I remember that being like 80 or so videos. So, roughly speaking, if Tales of Arise is about the same, since they say it's about the same length, I do expect it'll probably take at least a month and a half to get all those uploads out, maybe even 2 months for Tales of Arise, which obviously by then, most people will probably finish the game by then, but that's fine. I just want to have it kind of, just kind of going. So I think 2 a day, Monday through Friday until the game is done is pretty good. I think that's pretty much everything I want to say on how my schedule is kind of going to be and how I'm going to handle things. I will be playing the game on normal. I'm not going to be playing on hard. This isn't going to be, if you're looking for, a playthrough where I challenge myself, this is not going to be the playthrough for you because, like I said, I'm mostly here for the story. I obviously want a decent challenge, but I don't want it to be like, I don't want to die on the same boss 4 times and have to figure out a specific attack pattern to kind of be able to move forward. I don't care enough about that. So that's it with that. So I guess we can move now into kind of my thoughts. So after playing the demo 4 times, after everything we've been shown, I do have a lot of opinions, but I want to be careful with how I say them because a lot of things may change when I play the actual game. There's obviously some things I like, there's some things I don't like, but in terms of the stuff that I don't like, it's stuff that could change. Maybe it's better in the full game, but just take it, this is my opinion, it's not fact. If I don't like something and you like it, then that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all, it's just, my opinion. So, let's dive into what I like. I do like the combat. At first, I wasn't sure how I was gonna like it. I still... I'll get into the thing. I like and don't like the combat. Let me get into what I like first. I do like how the arts are going to be set up. By the way, if you aren't aware, because I saw a lot of people saying, oh, there's only 6 mapped arts, that kind of sucks. That's less than most Tales games. You even think back to Berseria, I think you could have like 16 mapped arts. So only having 6 would be, because I think it was X, if talking about PlayStation, obviously, X, square, triangle, circle, I believe, yeah, each one of those could have 4 arts each that you could map out. But obviously you didn't have a normal attack either, so that kind of made up for it. So it'd be kind of weird if we only had 6, but they have confirmed that there will be 12 mappable arts. So you'll have your 3 ground, you'll have your 3 air, and then you'll probably hold down like L2 or R2 or something to pull up the other mapped 6 arts for ground and air. So you basically have 6 ground, 6 air. So that's not bad. I don't really have an issue with that. And, the demo did overwhelm me at first with all the arts that I had because I didn't have time. I'm not good at games that throw a ton at you at once. I am kind of glad they didn't give us a story portion, but I kind of wish they had given us... I guess they wanted to give you a point of the game for the demo that was kind of like, early to mid-game, but still, late in the game enough to where you have full combos that you can do. Because obviously if they just did 10 minutes into the game, you have 2 arts, I mean, that's not going to get people to want to buy the game. They don't get to test out everything. So it is good on that sense. But for me personally, it was not great because obviously... When I get thrown a bunch of stuff at once, I'm not good with that. Like Final Fantasy, for example, Final Fantasy 14, there are some classes that start at a higher level when you pick them up, and those classes start with like 20 abilities, and I'm just like, okay, you just gave me way too much. It's going to take me forever to get used to this. Let me try things out one by one. So that's just kind of how I work, but that's just a personal thing. Maybe it's not the same thing for everyone else, but... for the most part, the combat felt nice. I do like kind of how everything works with the field. Everything does feel fast-paced. It's pretty... I don't really mind not having a block button. because the way dodging works is that it actually works out pretty well. The only issue being is, like, obviously you can't dodge in the air. So avoiding air, you just have to kind of be careful if you do an aerial attack that you're actually juggling the enemy and not being juggled yourself. I do have quite a, I mean, I didn't really talk about specifics of what I exactly like, but I just kind of like the feel of the combat. I really don't have too many issues now that I actually got some practice with it. Obviously, my main characters being Alphen and Law, and they're going to be my main... I guarantee you they're going to be the only two characters I really play. I'll obviously try everyone out in my playthrough, but I guarantee you 90% of the game is going to be Alphen and Law who I'm playing as. Unless, of course, there's a part where, like, the group splits into two, and Alphen and Law are on one team, and then everyone on, like, another team, then obviously I'll have to use other characters. Like, in Symphonia, there's a part of that where you have to split the team up. But let's talk about the things. I don't want to really say I hate these things, but a couple gripes I have. Let's talk about Overlimit. If Overlimit's going to work the same way it did in the demo, I'm not a huge fan of it. Because the way Overlimit, in case you didn't get it while playing the demo, Overlimit activates... I don't know if there's like a specific way to activate it. But when I was playing, it just seemed like the longer the battle went on, the more of a chance you had of Overlimit activating. I don't know if it's determined by the amount of damage you take. I don't know if it's determined by the amount of damage you do. But it just seemed always random whenever I would get it to activate, and it was usually in the longer fights. I prefer an Overlimit that you can kind of control. Obviously, in Berseria, you didn't have Overlimit. You had your break gauges, which, you know, you could use to do your Mystic Arts pretty much whenever you wanted. A game like Vesperia has an Overlimit gauge where you would turn it on yourself. I just would much prefer if Overlimit was something I could control. If it was a gauge that fills up over time, and then when I'm ready to do a Mystic Art, I can choose when I want to do it. So I hope it's more controllable in the full game, but if it's not the end of the world, but I'm not a huge fan of it. Okay, so there's that. I think that's really the main gripe with the combat, is just that, you know, I can't really control the Overlimit. I guess the camera angles are kind of weird, because the camera doesn't really follow on its own. So you kind of have to be moving the camera while you're fighting, so the camera does feel a little wonky at times, especially if you're going a whole bunch of different directions with arts. But I think other than that, that's really my only two gripes with the combat itself. I think everything else... I love that they took what was bad in Berseria with the combo, with the fighting system, and just made it better. So in Berseria, we pretty much had the same art system where you could only use a certain number of arts in a row, depending on how many, you know, how full your break gauges were and all that stuff. You know, sometimes if you would get staggered, you would lose one, so you could only do a certain number of attacks. I think you could have a total of 5, and most of the time I was down to 1 because I had either break gauge too much or the enemies had staggered me so many times they knocked it down there, and the only way you could build it back up is by landing hits. But if you can only do 1 attack, it made it very hard to kind of build it back up. So I like that this game kind of took away that penalty and just kind of has it to where it's like, okay, you know, these little diamond gauges you have, however many you have. It looks like in the beginning of the game you only start with 3, but obviously in the demo you had like 7 or 8. So it is going to build up over time. So I do like that they changed that with this. But, I think that's pretty much it for the combat. Let's talk about some of the other aspects that I got to experience. Skits. I still don't like them. I like the content of the skits. They do feel like tales. You know, how the characters talk, what they talk about. But the look of them just doesn't feel tales to me. It feels like, and I don't want this to be insulting in any way, so I'm going to be very, you know, I don't know if objective is the right word, but you'll get what I mean. I obviously don't want to, you know, bash because they're trying something new. They're seeing how it works. Here's my issue with the skits. 1, the panels, the way they come onto the screen, like, I get they're going for more of a comic book style, but it just comes off as very random and very kind of, like, cheap, I want to say. So it's kind of weird how they just kind of come on the screen like that. Second, if we're going to go 3D models, then they should have gone all the way. Because most of the time in these skits, at least the ones you see in the demo, the bodies still aren't moving. It's still the mouths moving, and that's really it. So it feels weird to have gone to the 3D models if you're still only going to make the mouths move. I feel like if that was the case, you should have just stuck with the 2D skits. I feel like it would have worked better because of my third point here, which is you can't do the over-exaggerated expressions that you could do in 2D. Obviously, in 3D, stuff looks more realistic. You can't do, some of the faces Magilu would make, or Bienfu would make, or Patty would make in Vesperia. You can't do those in 3D. You can't do the over-exaggerated stuff, which I do feel like is a drawback because there's a lot of silly things that happen, and it just feels like the expression is not going to be there. Like I said, this is all my opinion. If you like the new style of skits, it's totally up to you. But I think that's pretty much my only gripes with the skit system. I just don't like how the panels are random. I wish they were just have, even if you're going to go full 3D, have all 6 characters on the screen at the same time. The same way skits were, but you just have them 3D. But you know what? Maybe it's something they're trying out, and maybe the next Tales title they'll do something different. Who knows? Obviously it's a leap in many ways for Tales of Arise compared to Tales of Berseria, and it has been 5 years. So we'll see what works, we'll see what doesn't. Exploration feels nice. Obviously, we only had a few areas that we were able to explore, but I did feel like I had a lot of freedom of where I could go. You wouldn't have seen this in my demo playthrough video, but I did find all the weapons for all 6 characters in the demo, and I loved how I was able to, there was this little bank where I got to swim up the water into this cave and find some of the weapons and stuff, so it does feel like there's going to be a lot of freedom. I just need to see how many areas are kind of in the game, because I do have one worry, and I hope this is just a worry that gets thrown out the window whenever we get the full game in our hands, but I'm hoping that the areas are very vast. Like, I'm hoping that it's not just like 4 zones from one city to another. I mean, 4 zones actually sounds like a lot, but if the zones are like smaller, I don't want it to be like that short. You just, okay, you run 1 area, 2, 3, 4, there you go. You're already there. So I guess my concern is the vastness of the actual world. I hope it is as vast as they're making it seem. Now, of course, I don't want an open world Tales game, but I do want each area to have a decent size to it. Obviously, that first area you start in is pretty short in the demo. You pretty much start at the top of a cliff, you make a right, and then you're in the next area after a very short time. So, hopefully the areas are as big as the second area you go into the demo. That's a pretty vast area. And I'm also hoping, so far we've seen a few of the regions. We've seen the desert region, we've seen the snowing region, we've seen the region outside the city you do in the demo, and then of course we've seen what was the other one? There's like another city that you're like right outside of in one of the trailers. So we've already really seen like 4 different, I guess I'll call them biomes, 4 different biomes. But obviously I'm hoping that there's a lot and a lot more ground to cover. But of course, they're not going to reveal everything in the trailer. So this is one of those things where it's like, I'm being cautious, about feeling this way, because I know it could very well change in the full game. Trying to think we weren't able to try out the skill system. That wasn't available in the demo, so I can't really say how I feel about that, but the skill system does seem like, based on the trailer they did for the skill system, that's going to be how you unlock the bulk of your art and status upgrades, which feels very much like the Xillia Lilium system, which I love, so I am all for it. Equipment is pretty much what it is. You have a weapon, you have armor, and then you have 2 accessories. Pretty standard for Tales. There are some games that had more than that. But, it's not the worst thing in the world. I think it's nice to kind of keep things simple so people aren't going crazy with stuff they have to craft and stuff like that. I love that we can craft accessories. I think that'll make it really fun to kind of make the kind of gear that you want. What else is there really to talk about? I guess one thing to talk about, this isn't really like something for me to, I'm not critiquing this, but I did see a lot of people, like there was even some big YouTuber who was like complaining about this, saying how like a lot of the lines in the demo were not voiced, and how that could be concerning for the full game if a lot of the game isn't voiced. They had already stated that the stuff in the demo that wasn't voiced will be voiced. It's just it wasn't ready. You know, this is the demo we played is a 6-month-old build, so it was obviously not implemented because the voice acting wasn't done at that time. But it should all be voiced in the full game. I think the only stuff that isn't going to be voiced is like the random NPCs that you can talk to in town that aren't going to have cutscenes. But like the guy on the road when he's like telling you like, oh, watch out for monsters, but the city you're looking for is over there. That should be voiced. And then the guard in front of the city who's like, oh, we can't let anyone in until this monster's defeated. That guy should be voiced as well. And then, of course, all the scenes with the actual party members should be voiced as well. But I think other than that, that's pretty much everything I want to say on my thoughts on the demo. I mean, you know, you only get a real taste for everything. You don't get a big kind of feel for it all. I loved camping, by the way. You have to be very careful. Oh, here's a complaint I'll have. But you have to be very careful that you don't miss any skits because it's in the bottom right-hand corner, and the button is so tiny that there was a lot of times where I missed a skit on my first run through the demo, and then there were skits I kept finding each next run of the demo I did. So you have to be very careful when you're looking down there. Every time you stay at a campsite, when you're out in the field, always make sure so you don't miss any of the skits. Which, of course, you can rewatch at the actual campsites, and there will be some stuff you can do at the campsites as well for dialogue. But I think that's pretty much it. I think I've rambled on long enough about kind of everything with Tales of Arise. So, yeah, we're about a week and a half away from the game's actual release. So let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know what you are excited for. Let me know if there are any issues you are worried about when it comes to Tales of Arise. I'm just excited. I'm excited to play a Tales game for the first time. I'm excited to share it all with you, and I think it'll be a really fun time. So, and I actually recently had to upgrade my capture card, so this playthrough should look better than my... I mean, it's gonna look better than my Zillia one because it's gonna be on my PS5, but it should look even cleaner. So that'll be fun. So that's gonna be it, guys. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel. I will see you all next time. Have a wonderful time playing Tales of Arise. And I will see you all in the playthrough. So, see you all next time. Have a wonderful day, everyone.